Wonderful. So welcome everyone to Uncharted. We're going to get started with a meditation. It's almost more of a short guided visualization, but you can call it whatever you want, really. It's more about the experience. So just close your eyes and settle into the present moment. And know that you're simply bringing your awareness to the present moment. But your being is always there. It really has no choice but to just be here now. And so I want to invite you to take up a little conversation with your sense of awareness and allow it to simply scan through your body, noticing what you notice through an objective lens. Not trying to change or alter what you find, but simply greeting whatever sensations you may encounter with an objective curiosity. Now bring into that awareness a sense of being yourself. And noticing that really there's nothing else you can actually be. And that in this moment, you are being yourself. Simply allow that knowing to permeate. And settle you. Knowing that you're exactly where you're meant to be because you are here. Now, whatever the quality of your breath is, direct some of that breath into the simplicity and perfection of that statement. And feel yourself settling. Maybe that settling is from a 10 to a 9.5. Maybe it's from a 5 to a 2. It doesn't matter. We make it all up. Taking a few more calming breaths now at your own pace. And slowly coming back to the room. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I never plan these short meditations. I just let them come through me. And right before I start them, I'm like, what am I going to say? And then I say something and I surprise myself. And I'm like, I liked that. So I thought we'd get started today by Heather and I just bouncing a couple of ideas back and forth about what we're sort of seeing new and fresh about stress. And then we're going to open it up to a broader discussion for whoever wants to jump in and share. And the reason why I picked this topic today is because I've been feeling pretty stressed. And I thought, you know what? If I'm feeling some stress, chances are that other people that I know and love are also feeling it. And if you're not, that's kind of exciting too, because when you're not in the thralls of a feeling, sometimes you get access to this sort of like, 30,000 foot view of it, which can be really beautiful and insightful for those of us who might be kind of in it. So basically, I've just designed this call for myself so that you can help me. Kidding, not kidding. So one of the things that kind of came to me last night as I was ruminating on, kind of like what is stress and where does it come from? Was this, it kind of brought to mind this idea that Michael Neal was talking about how often we think we're afraid of the unknown, but really we're kind of scaring ourselves with the idea of the imaginable no. We're kind of creating these scenarios in our head of what could happen based on what we think we know or the information that we have available to us. And we're allowing that to really kind of freak us out. And it's a really kind of small way of looking at the future or what's possible, because we're sort of omitting the fact that there's this incredible force of universal mind that lives through us, that sort of like, I was gonna say rides us like a bike, but that sounds kind of like a bit much. But it's like we show up for life, and we have this beautiful common sense, sort of like innate wisdom that flows through us, and we use that combined with the power of thought to make decisions and to navigate the world. But at the end of the day, there's a force that's living us. There's a force that's taking care of 99% of our existence that we are literally uninvolved with. And so we're not really leaving space for that. And what I notice is that when I'm in a state of stress, I'm really not trusting that. And I think a lot of that stress is this extra thinking that I have about needing to control all the stuff that isn't actually even my job. But somehow I've let it kind of pop onto my to-do list. It's almost like, get the groceries, do the laundry, make sure the sun rises, ensure that the planet spins, and somehow that's just like, I've been like, this is fine. I can handle it. I've got it. Don't worry. And then, 10 seconds into the day, I'm like, maybe I don't have this. So that's kind of been a little bit of my, and of course, like I'm laughing now, which is awesome, because I know that as soon as I start laughing, that the edges of that story are starting to crumble, and there's some space in there for me to maybe see new and fresh. So with that said, I'm going to hand the baton to Heather for a minute and ask you, Heather, like, what are you hearing new and fresh or seeing, or what do you got on stress?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds really stressful to have to keep the planet spinning for sure. And I love that. I love that analogy, because it's like I do think that stress is like this burden that we take on that's like literally not ours. Like it's like somehow we're taking on a burden that it's up to us. And I know, working in the space, even in the hypnotic space or in a more relaxed space, that's such a helpful image for people to imagine, like sort of taking this weight off of them and like dropping it. And not because they're being irresponsible or not taking care of things, but because for some unknown reason, they just took it on as their responsibility. And being a business owner and an entrepreneur, I found that I have a very intimate relationship with stress in that way, where I would have moments where I would stop and realize, okay, so all the pressure that I feel and all the stress of all the things to do, basically I put on myself. Like, and then once I realized, oh, so I'm the one putting all these things on myself, that's when it started to unravel. That's when it started to have less power, less poignancy, like less impact on my mood and on the way that I moved forward. And one of the things that really became clear to me in that was there's the to-do list is never ending. Like we could literally, like we might feel like, okay, once I get this all done, like I'll be good. Like I won't be stressed anymore. Like once this gets finished, okay, and I'll be okay. But like we can always put more on the to-do list, and life will always put more on our to-do list. And so I think it's more about the relationship that we have with our thinking than it is some type of uh task, like some type of completion of work or tasks or like a cycle of life. Like people will say, and I know that, well, I'll actually use my mom as an example, and I know that she would be okay me sharing this, but when with my dad passing, it became very clear to her that she kept thinking, once this happens, I'll feel better, or once a year is passed, I'll feel better, or once this happens. And it became that's a really perfect example of how powerful our minds can be in convincing us that once something changes externally, we'll feel better. But I think it's actually just a distraction pulling us away into some sort of like a coping mechanism, instead of like, and taking us away from the moment where we could become more intimate with ourselves and kind of feel into like, what sort of purgatory are we putting ourselves in by needing something out of our control to change to feel better,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because for me, my experience of the stress that I'm feeling right now, it's coming with so much aliveness. And it's funny because the period of my life that I just came out of, that a lot of people would have thought was the ultimate. Like there was some certain things that were going on for me that were like, people meet me, they're like, you have that, I want that. And I'm like, like it's great, but also like I'm often worried about it ending. I spend a lot of time worried about it not being my reality anymore, or yeah, it's great, but it's also made me a little bit creatively lazy, perhaps, or like there was a lot of things where it's just like I couldn't connect into the aliveness, and it's like now I've got this feeling of quote unquote stress, which I'm sure I could break down into other emotions and like find more interesting things about, but there's a lot of aliveness in it. And it feels like it's this, like, it's kind of a swamp, but it's a really fertile swamp where I'm like, if I plant seeds in this, like, they're going to be cool. Not just like, oh, I have what everyone wants. And so that's really great because, but is it what my soul wants? Like, is it really, really what my heart and soul wants? And so stress, I think, can also be this beautiful teacher. It can be, as with all emotions, and especially the more kind of like sticky, icky ones, is that it always has gifts for us. But one of the things I notice is that there's this tendency to be like, okay, what's the gift? What's the gift? Because you want to get out of the emotion quickly, grab the gift, and hightail it out of the store. But sometimes it's a gift that wants to be unpacked slowly over time. And sometimes the gift is just becoming comfortable with things that you refuse to be comfortable with. Um, and back to what you mentioned about the power of thought. So the beautiful thing for me in that is what I've been noticing about my thinking during this time of feeling a bit of stress is that I sort of have these like core horror fantasies where it's like, ooh, what if that happened? And then it's like, ooh, shivers. And then like, ooh, what if that happened? And it's like each time I think about them, I scare myself, and it's easy for me to just kind of see it on the horizon and be like, don't look at it, don't think about it. But it's still just like, it's like, how about now? How about now? How about now? Like every 5 seconds, right? And it's not so much that it's scary, it's the frequency that it pops up. It's just like it's taking up a lot of space in my mental zone. Like anytime I'm like, oh, let's just get calm, or it's like, oh, perfect, you made some space for me. Here I am again, And so it's almost that frequency bit. It's like if we strip all of the emotion away from it, it's like I'm just having this thought a lot. It's coming up every 5 seconds. And that part begins to get exhausting. And the insight that I had around that was this idea that Sid Banks talks about having a quiet mind. And it doesn't mean necessarily that you don't have thoughts. It's just that thoughts come and go without you attaching to them in the same way. And so that for me kind of also gave me a little space around that. It felt like it opened up some room. Uh, Heather,
Yeah.
I'm going to let you speak, and then I see that Sig has his hand up. So when you are done, I'll hand the baton to you, and then when you feel complete, let's open it up for people to share or ask questions, whatever feels right for all of
Oh,
you.
that's perfect. I look forward to hearing thoughts too from everyone. Couple things. I just love this because one of the reasons I love spending time with you and your grounding in the principles is because it helps me to unravel some of my like healing language, like my language around healing and like freedom because of just being in the healing space for so long. And I love the way that you were able to just like be like, oh, there's that thought again, and I'm scared. There's that thought again, and I'm really scared because I've been actually going through this as I've been. I actually really think that these kind of thoughts come up, especially when we put ourselves in out of our comfort zone. Like, and I stopped looking at it as like, oh my God, this is like a trauma that am carrying, and started to look at it more as like, yeah, this energy that creates shit. And I even found myself like well, actually, some of you know, because I've popped into this group before talking about just like this destruction that I was going through in a sense. Like I was like, I moved and everything was new, and I was just like being challenged in every area of my life. And I was having so many emotions that like all I could do was surrender. And I actually find myself like missing it sometimes now that I'm not in it because it was so fertile. Like, and life was just showing me like so much of what I needed to surrender into however I was feeling, and start to realize like I am creating a whole bunch of stories about what's happening to me when really this is awesome. This is change. This is different. This is not boring. This is alive, like you said. And so that's why I love this conversation, and to lighten it a little bit instead of it be like, it's like we actually do that intentionally. I mean, I don't, but people do intentionally watch like horror movies and such to get scared. Yet like when we do it to ourselves, it somehow feels like it's true. Like this is like so true. Yet when we watch a movie and we get in the emotion of it, we still know this isn't actually true. So I love that. That's to me like really feels nice and gentle, while and rather than like demonizing a feeling, it reminds me of like I saw this Buddhist monk speak once, And he was saying, Western society, the problem isn't stress. The problem isn't that everybody's stressed. The problem is that everybody walks around being like, oh my God, I'm so stressed. I'm so stressed. This is so stressful. And this is stressful. And this is causing me stress. And this list is causing me stress. And this person is causing me stress. And this government is causing me stress. And this. And like that resonated with me so much. Like this was years ago, I heard that and I never forget it. Because as soon as I get in that mindset, in that stuckness of being like, right, stress isn't the problem. The way I'm speaking about and thinking about and like bringing up stress in my life is the problem. Yeah.
Gorgeous. Thank you, Heather. So there, we'll kick us off. And Sig, you had your hand up, so I want to come to you whether you put it down or not.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
forcing
thank
you
you.
to speak.
What?
I said I'm forcing you to speak.
Oh, well, that's fine. Uh, no, a couple of things came up as you were talking now, and really, the first one was just I remember I saw this TED talk from this scientist who was like uh, researching stress, right? And she found out that those who believe stress is bad and harmful, and then they stress a lot, they live shorter lives. But people who think stress is good and stress a lot, they are not affected by it. So that was just the first thing that came up. But the second was that I have noticed that several times I feel a certain type of energy within me, and then I start labeling this energy. Oh, this is stress, this is excitement, this is, and sometimes this happens so fast that I am not even seeing that it happens. So suddenly I say, I'm stressed, and then I start looking, why am I stressed, And I start going into all the stuff in my life, everything outside of me, everything I think is going to happen, whatever. Uh, but then I miss the fact that I also sort of labeled this to be stress, and that is a problem somewhere, you know. So just energy pouring through, and it's like I used to be depressed a lot, and I was really, really labeling this as depression, and I made a big deal out of it. Um, but when I had my insight around how I'm not really depressed, then for the longest time, I actually thought that I wasn't depressed at all. Like it's just gone. But then, like a year after or something, I noticed that, oh, sometimes this energy it comes in, but I don't make a big deal out of it. Like maybe I say, oh, I'm a little bit flat today. No big deal. It's kind of peaceful. And then it was just sort of this quick little thing that was here for a moment or for a day, you know. When it used to be this big deal that I called depression, and it used to last for months, right? Um, so yeah, I just felt like sharing, like I have noticed how sometimes I feel a certain energy and then I try to figure it out somehow. Um, and then I start labeling what is this, and then I go to what's causing this, and then how can I fix it? Or yeah, so I completely missed the fact that I created a problem out of feeling an emotion, you know, or feeling energy, I would rather say. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a beautiful point, Sig. Thank you for sharing that. And it's what I really heard in that was just how we get we feel a feeling, and then the minute we label it and we put it into a category, it becomes subject to all the rules that we have around the belief of what that emotion or what that experience is all about, and that's when we kind of just like lose grip with the fact that we're feeling energy and that energy is coming through, and we're just like it's the most like it's the most normal thing, I think, for human beings to try to grasp on to that, like, got to put it in a box, got to give it a name so that it could be safe, so that I can process it, not because it's a gift from the universe to like help me grow, but so that I can get it out. Like, thank you, just like, go away, please, right? And it's that go away energy, I think, that where we just want to put that lens on it. And it's so, so true. And I think often too, it piles up and it piles up. And then by the time we actually look at it, we're so overwhelmed and we're so under resourced that it's so much easier to just give it a label without letting it truly kind of speak to us as energy from this energetic form. And again, I think it's that desire to want to control so that we can make sense of. But it's like, we don't need to actually make sense of things. That's not really a requirement, but it's kind of a go-to. It's like, it's normal, but it doesn't have to be natural.
Like, that's something just from having so many clients come to me over the years for so many different things. That is the key point that they would make, like, I just want to know why. I just want to know why. And then, I started to say, well, if you felt better, would it matter why? and they'd say, no, actually, I don't actually care. And I notice even my son, like, if he's starting to not feel good, he'll start to be like, why? What's wrong? Like, what's going on? What's wrong? And I think that's why sometimes people feel so comfortable with a diagnosis, because it somehow answers this question of like, oh, this is what's wrong with me. And I think that's an interesting way that, like you said, it kind of could feel safe, but at the same time, it almost just takes us away from just letting the feeling come out or letting it be and process or whatever it is. Needing to know why, or like trying to understand why we feel a certain way, I think just really takes us away from the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a thought that I had just about circumstance and how we want so badly when we feel something for there to be a circumstance that caused it. Because that's so much more appealing to that like base level of anxiety. It's like, okay, well, like if I'm feeling depressed, like hopefully it's because something depressing happened. Or if I'm feeling stressed, hopefully it's because something stressful happened. And I like the etymology of words. And I even looked up like the definition of stress in like the Normie dictionary. Let's call it. You guys know me. And it was something like, I can't remember exactly what it said. Here, let me see if I still have the tab open. But it was totally outside in. It was like, let's see, here it is a state of worry or mental tension caused by a difficult situation. And so like we live in a world that is completely acceptant of the fact that a situation causes a feeling. And so of course we're like, stress is this epidemic because we're all walking around thinking like, okay, well, like financial troubles are stressful and people dying is stressful and like, not knowing what's going to happen with the economy or the government is stressful, or, like we've got all these situations where like 99.9999999 of us can agree that those situations are generally stressful. But the trouble is that, we can't make a direct correlation between our feelings and our circumstances. And unless our circumstances can give us the same feeling 100% of the time in 100% of humans, there's a crack there. And that crack is where the light can get in the words of famous Canadian poet Leonard Cohen. And I think we just do so much good for ourselves to look in the direction of that crack, of that light, because what it has for us is exponential freedom. because even if it's not true 0.000001% of the time, it's not a law, which means we can actually grow free from it by looking more in that direction and letting that unpack and unfold for us, you know? And the cool thing that I've found is that even if you move the needle on that like experience, circumstance, kind of balance scale by like 1 degree, it exponentially changes your enjoyment, your ability to enjoy life or to enjoy something that someone would say is stressful. And you know, Sig, I heard that same study from that same TED Talk, and I loved that because at that time I was doing things in my life that people around me were like, that would be so stressful. And I'm like, I love it. Like I was like feeding off of it. And I'm like, good, I love that study because to me, this is excitement. Like this is like, I love this. I'm feeding off of it. And so it wasn't stressful. And so it just cracks open even more that what might be stressful for one person is actually very exhilarating for another. And because of that non-duality of those things, there's so much space for us to see more in. I'm seeing more now. um, I would love to open it up if anyone else wants to hop in and, you know, share anything really, you know, like anything you got. If it's about stress, cool. If it's not, we'll make it about stress. So don't worry. I'm just kidding. But like, you know, if you're hearing or seeing something new and fresh, or even if you just want to hop in, Chloe, yeah, I was staring at you. I'm like, Chloe, let's go. You just got to unmute yourself, darling. Hasn't quite happened yet.
Myself. There we go. Hi, everyone. My name's Chloe. I had the pleasure of getting to me and Katie having each other come into our lives recently. I can't talk to you right now, sweetheart. I'll be right there. I have children. Summertime. So I myself am an entrepreneur. I own a conscious-minded retail company that has physical retail locations. So talk about stress over the last few years. I started the company 13 years ago now. And when I started the company, I did it all by myself. I had no financial backing, nothing. I do not come from money. So it was really interesting because I remember one time just saying to the universe, I was like, okay, I don't have the support of family. I don't have financial support. Like I just had this knowing that I was meant to start this company. And I just remember being like, okay, universe, like if you help me, I will help people in return. But what came with that too, which I hadn't realized, was this interesting journey of navigating stress and pretty intense anxiety. So I, over the last 13 years, in my company, the most I find, the most common stress causer is often financial. And it was, if you're looking at your business and your books every single day and you're like always like, okay, this much money's needs to come out, then this much money needs to come in, that is stressful. Like that's a word that I would say would be stressful. And then we came into COVID as a retailer, and by that time the company was 10 years old and it was really interesting because it was like I just had this knowing. You'd think that would have been more stressful than when I started the company, but it wasn't. I just had this like all-time knowing that I was like, there is no freaking way that COVID and closing the government, sweetheart, you need to respect my call right now, is going to close my business. Like I have worked so hard at this. And it was interesting because it was like out of all the anxiety experience and going through many years of in the industry that I am, it was like I had seen how all the work that I put into being able to emotionally support myself and not allowing my anxiety to take over, how strong I was in that time. Fast forward to right now, it's a really interesting time, and I really see how our economy affects people's spending habits, and navigating my team and my company through this quote unquote financial stressful time. I've got it. I'm on top of it. I can separate that stress from my day-to-day life and like be empowered and know that we will come out on top. But the one thing, after being a very strong businesswoman navigating through all these, what most people think would be the most stressful time, here I am in the present moment, and I've had the most insane anxiety for 5 days. And it's like, it's like, okay, so how, even when we do all the work and we're strong and we're able to navigate through this entrepreneur world, but then we just are stuck in this simple anxiety state. It's like, how I'm still trying to figure out how to turn off the anxiety. But it was interesting what Katie said. It's like, well, maybe we're not always supposed to turn off the anxiety. And this conversation about anxiety and stress, it's like, are they one of the same or are they different? It's the one
Chloe's
thing
coming
I'm
in with
still
some
trying to
top shelf
figure out.
questions here. Well, it's funny, Chloe, because before this call, I was thinking about that. I was thinking about like, well, what is anxiety and what is
Yeah.
stress? And honestly, I think they're a similar energy, but we just, when they come up as energy and then we put them in their little parcels, anxiety to me is like fear without eyes. It's like fear of, again, the unknown, but really, it's not the unknown, because the unknown is benevolent. It's beautiful. It's the universe, like literally the pure potential of the universe to create anything. But we get freaked out by it because we think it's this. What a better definition of it would be the like the possible unknown, like what we think could happen. We're like actually living in a future that we're creating with the power of thought. And so I think really they are the same thing in a lot of ways, but just like we tweak some of the settings, or like, we brush one's hair and put lipstick on the other one, and we're like, here you go. And I'm gonna let Sig speak to you, because he's always got so much beautiful knowledge. But I think you've opened up some really beautiful questions, and I think you've answered a lot of them in what you've said as well. And so I'm not going to come in with, too many hot takes, but just that, I heard a lot of space and a lot of energy and a lot of flow in what you were sharing. And I think that, I know that you have this direct connection to wisdom. And I know that you're the best one to figure out whatever this stuff is. And one of the things I heard as you were talking is just how you have this beautiful relationship with your own knowing. Like you knew you would get through your COVID with your business. You knew that this stuff was going to work out. And sometimes that knowing is like this gentle thing inside of us. But again, what we do with it is we put on this suit of armor and we become empowered. And we're like, okay, I'm going to take that knowing and I'm going to use it to fight the fight. But fighting is exhausting too, and sometimes things like stress or things like anxiety, I think they crop up to be like, hey, yeah, your intentions are right, but you're wielding this battle axe and it's exhausting. Like, is there something that you can put down? Like, what is the most simple that you can strip this back to and still be in that beautiful creative energy, that trusting of the universe, trusting what you know is right for you, without turning it into like 10 full-time jobs of things you have to do to be okay,
Oh wait, didn't they make pills for anxiety? I just don't enjoy them.
They're just horrifying.
Oh, it just doesn't work for me.
I know, I hear you. Okay, Sig, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. It's just what comes up for me is really just the power of keeping things simple. Because like I can try to differentiate different feelings as different things, but when it boils down to it, how I see it anyhow is that no matter what I feel is created by this power of thought, right? So it's basically like if you imagine you have a bunch of Play-Doh and it's taken this shape, you're like, oh, this is anxiety, and then another shape, and it's like, oh, now it's stress. And what are they, But it's really just Play-Doh, and we experience it in different ways,
Mhm,
and
mhm,
and it's safe. That's
mhm.
just all that comes up in me, really. Just it's
Yeah,
all fun.
absolutely. Mhm.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no worries.
Go for it, Heather.
Yeah, I like this, what you're saying, Chloe, too, because this has been really my relationship too with stress, being an entrepreneur of like 12 years, and that 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 tension of just never really uh knowing, never really knowing, like,
Yeah.
and the trust that's involved in taking on that choice of work and like sustenance. And as you were speaking, something occurred to me around that too, of like the anxiety, or this desire that we might have to kind of regulate it or numb it or find some sort of way to like work through it. Like I've been in that point where I've just been like, I should probably just take something so I can keep going. Because I'm not this type of person. Like I can't be productive when I'm feeling a lot.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
I've definitely I that's where my mind goes to too. And what I've realized through that relationship with myself over there's plus helping so many people with anxiety,
mhm,
that I think it's a gift. Like I think that's a gift for us to not to stop us from just pushing through.
mhm,
Like I
mhm,
think I had started to feel like, and even in my clients, I started to see how, oh, like this is a gift. Like my one client, she was feeling so much anxiety because like she was literally ignoring her wisdom.
mhm,
And as soon as she listened to her wisdom, which I will agree is sometimes harder than we make it sound, because it involves making tough decisions and sometimes stop doing something that we got to stop doing.
mhm,
Oh, but as soon
mhm,
as she listened to her wisdom and started and like stopped doing things that were feeling really bad for her and out of alignment, the anxiety's gone.
mhm,
And I'm not saying that anxiety is always saying, oh, you got to change. But one thing I did start to realize as anxiety, or what we might call anxiety, is actually a gift, because it's showing us that, because if we weren't feeling anxiety, then uh would we really step back? Like, I feel like we would just become super productive robots.
Yeah, like would we even be able to recognize that that's something that we actually maybe need to sit with or, process?
Yeah, like
Mhm, mhm. If our body wasn't physically screaming at us. And then
no.
it's tricky because it's like I'm really intuitive, so I'm really good at like knowing, and then what I find is, I through like meditation and mindfulness, I can really usually get on top of my anxiety, and just like the last 5 days, it's just like so intense, and you're just kind of like, okay, well, sometimes it's like we can put something to it, but then sometimes it's there and it's loud, but you're like, where is this coming from? Because it's like everything's good, this is okay, maybe this isn't, but I'm aware of this, so where is this anxiety flare coming from? And that's one thing that I'm trying to figure out. Like, I can solve all the world's problems all at one time.
Well, good point, because it does because when a strong feeling persists, it does cause us to think that we've got to figure it out,
Mm-hmm.
instead of
Solve the solution,
yeah,
or solve the problem.
or that it is a problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is it even a problem?
Like, I come from a world, like in my world of hypnotism, every hypnotist will tell you, I can take away your anxiety like that. And granted, sometimes we do, but the real truth of it all is even that sort of made up, that the anxiety needs to be taken away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, as if it is something that's a problem to be solved, instead of, like, I think Sig said it too, like an energy that we're experiencing at
Yeah.
the
And like allowing ourselves to feel through that, feeling the feelings versus
yeah.
not. Yeah, the monkey mind. I
Analytical
call
and
it the monkey mind, where it's just like go, 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 go. And I'm like, why are you obsessing about this? And it's I've chosen never to take prescriptions based upon it, and get through it mindfully. And at the same time, it's like, I think it kind of comes hand in hand with being an entrepreneur as well. you know we're these like strong humans helping people navigate through their own stuff, but meanwhile we're only human ourselves, so we're also going.
we came here to be, not just do.
Mm-hmm.
And energy and feelings is a part of being human,
Mm-hmm.
part of the richness of being human. And it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with us, or like an analytical problem to be solved. That's where
Mm-hmm.
I always kind of, like, I kind of do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And exactly that, like that same
This is
motion too. Yeah.
Katie, I could speak to this even like with the better wording of it, but it's like this is like the opposite of like our wisdom. This is
Mm-hmm.
the wisdom
Mm-hmm.
taking
Yeah,
us
absolutely.
wisdom.
And you're like, can I just rip
Yeah.
this out?
I just am
But you
like,
can't.
a feeling, because feeling
Mm,
come back,
yeah.
to ourselves, and out of our,
Hmm.
and just into ourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. I love
Emma,
it.
are you still there? Okay, there she is. I'd love to hear from you, Emma.
Hello, I've got a lively puppy who's trying to destroy everything under the massage bed. um, it just occurred to me, going in a very slightly different direction actually, was that about 6 months after I kind of I started learning about three principles and stuff like that, that we as a family hit quite a turbulent time with kind of life-changing diagnoses and all sorts of kind of things happening, like when you get that one of those weeks, as we might call them. And what I found really fascinating was that there was an awareness of some stress in the body, and yet I was more present than probably I'd ever been. And that presence really kind of carried through. And I thought there's something about stress, isn't there? If you're running away from a tiger, you're running away from a tiger. You're not thinking about what you're going to cook for dinner tonight. You know, you're just kind of like, and I kind of wonder is, do we, because one thing I noticed, stress can be addictive, that, you know, that you can see those kind of threads running through some people. And I do think we can use it to try and get present. Because what I noticed was when I kind of had 6 months of this, I've got so much on, there was no time to be anxious about anything or worry about it. It was just like, right, this is what I'm doing now, and I've got to give 100% to that to make sure that I'm kind of on the next thing. And it almost felt like an enlightening experience. It was a really, actually very spiritual time. But afterwards, once everything kind of settled down and we were back into patterns of life, it was then that there was like, you know, I really resonated with what Chloe said, was I could feel this, when I got quiet, there was this vibration in my system that I was just like, what is that? And I think it was almost my body trying to find its way back to presence, you know, and my body just thought it needed that kind of, it's like stress and adrenaline. It was just trying to find its way back into balance while everything was getting calm. And it was just, I'm not sure whether I've explained that very well, but it was just a fascinating kind of insight into how we work, but you know, how that can become addictive in itself, you know. And it's like, it's when our thinking that, and I don't necessarily mean thinking here, but when our body thinks it needs that to be present, to be on it, it's just like, and it took me a little time to kind of recalibrate that and the expectations and rebalance that kind of flow of energy. So, that was my few little thoughts.
Thank you, Emma. Yeah, what I really heard in that was just about how the body thinks, you know, and it's true. Like we think about thinking as if it's something that the mind does exclusively, but you know, it's so unconscious, a lot of these things that we just hop into, and then we kind of just find ourselves in the deep end in a pot of boiling water, and we're like, whoa, how did I get here? I thought I had some tools and I thought I knew a few things about the human experience, but like it's really easy to just get somewhere, I think, and find ourselves there and be like, whoa, I fell asleep for like a period of time, and now I'm finding myself, you know, kind of waking up and becoming aware of all the things that I assumed about my situation, I guess, or that I assumed about how life works. And there was some things too, as Chloe was speaking, that I realized that sometimes we use stress and anxiety almost as like a navigating tool. Like it's there to help us navigate, but we see it as something that we need to get rid of. And it's like that reoccurring thought, like, oh, I'm stressed. And I know that stress causes things like cancer and illness. And, you know, and it's like that, all that other thoughts of like, oh, and I need to get rid of it because it's like a poison that's in my body, you know. But it's like sometimes stress and anxiety feel like these really high octane, like it's almost like it's a really fast car, and if you're using it to go around in circles, it's going to drive you crazy. But if you get in this really fast car and you actually use it to help you navigate, it could be really exciting and take you somewhere really exciting. Okay, thanks, Emma. Good night. um, and you know, I've heard the word, like, you know, knowing or I know tossed around a lot in this conversation, and this is a big one for me because I always think about like, well, what can I actually know, and what do I need to know, because there's so much that I'm never going to know, and I can create a lot of stress and anxiety about what I'm never going to know. But somebody had mentioned around safety. And I think all that stress and anxiety ever really need to kind of like, I mean, it just occurred to me that the question that I could ask in the midst of stress or anxiety is, am I safe? And I think that the reason why stress and anxiety persist in the way they do is because they're questioning whether or not we're safe. They're like even like your thing, Chloe, where you were like, I open up the books and you're like, okay, this much money's coming out. I need this much money to come in. It's like what we're saying to our subconscious is, I need this to happen to be safe. Anxiety is like, are you safe? And we're like, I don't know. And it's like, get safe. And we're like, I don't know how. And it's like, I will continue to be anxious until you figure it out. Right. But it's like, it's almost like, no, instead, we need to have a conversation with that stress and anxiety from the part of us that knows that we're always okay. That says, yes, I am safe because I have like, that's my natural, safety is a non-negotiable. And from that place, I can know that I'm safe. What I don't know is what's going to happen. And what's going to happen could continue to feel unsafe at different junctions. And that value of checking back in and being like, okay, but am I safe? And like, spoiler alert, we're always safe, and like, whether we're in a human body or whether, it doesn't mean you'll never get hurt. You'll never sustain an injury. You'll never get sick. But there's a sense of safety that's underneath all of that. And it's our connection and grounding to that, I think, that allows us to navigate anxiety or navigate stress and not have it paralyze us, have it become this thing that becomes a navigational tool instead of a form of paralysis that keeps us stuck in a loop, spinning and spinning and spinning. So that's just kind of what like percolated for me. And the last point I'll make is, and I think sometimes we think like, hey, I've been following my wisdom, I've been listening to my guides, I've been doing what the universe wants me to do, like I've been showing up and I'm still getting anxiety. Like what the F? Like what did I do to deserve this? And it just reminds me of the analogy of like flying a plane. And if you're flying a plane and you are even 1 degree off course, you are not going to end up in your destination. You're going to end up somewhere else. And I don't want this to be an analogy about destination because we all know, the journey, the destination. But it just goes to say that like, we might be doing a really good job, like we might be doing 99% great. But if there's just that one little, that one little bit of differentiation in us, if there's just one little thing that maybe we're off on, over time, it's going to build and build and build. And it doesn't mean we're wrong or bad, but I think sometimes anxiety or stress comes up to be like, hey, kid, you're doing great, but you're just a little off on this thing. And if I let you keep going, you're going to end up somewhere where you really don't want to be. So I'm going to bring this anxiety up now. I know it feels crappy and you're confused, but just be with it. Just do your best to give it space and maybe ask it in a non-rushy, like trying to get through this kind of a way. Like, what are you trying to tell me? What gifts do you have for me? I'll be patient. I'll listen. I'll make time to listen to you. I'll make time to put my hand where I feel you on my body and just, and I don't have a timeline for you. And 100% of the time, if I'm willing to let go of the form and the outcome and the timeline, I'll find out. It's just, we want it now, not in 2 weeks from now, or the idea of getting the answer in a month is also stressful. It's like, no, I need it now. But there's so little that we actually know about what we actually need down on this plane of form, down here in the physical world. And there's such a deep sense of surrender that brings us back to that like that knowing balance, like what we need to know versus what we really don't need to know. And I can feel it now, just like that sense of okayness. Like it's like once you kind of crack it open, it's like it just spills out and it's like, oh yeah, it's like it can just consume all your problems like an ooze. It's like, but I'm okay. And then it's like, but you need to pay, but I'm okay. But you're safe, But you can't just like say it when you're not feeling it and have it necessarily be your reality. But once you feel it, nothing else stands a chance.
Thanks, Katie. That was really lovely. It's true. It's so funny because I mean, it's not a comfortable place to be in, but it's powerful, you know, and when we can sit in those uncomfortable feelings, especially the ones that physically manifest, that you're physically feeling. And I love that we're like, instead of using words, just using, because that is it. I think when we do, I know when we allow ourselves to sit in those uncomfortable feelings and like feel through them, it's more powerful, and we are able to process those emotions and those feelings, and come out the other end, regardless if sometimes they take over our bodies for days. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chloe. I'm gonna see if Heather has anything to add.
Yeah,
Bye, Gina. Thanks for coming.
this like you saying that kind of like, okay, talking about safety. I just saw something because I always kind of saw it as like trust or surrender. Like, I do believe in destiny, and I do believe that I am here. I came here to see things and experience things and probably learn things. And so I always found it really safe to just really trust that whatever I'm going through is exactly what I came here to do.
Mm-hmm.
But then I can see now in you talking about safe and how and this whole bank account, like I feel like it was easier for me when I didn't pay attention to that, because I would just be like, oh, enough will come in and that will be cool. And then when I grew up in this last year and I had to
had to actually pay attention. Mm-hmm.
admit it, I've been growing up in this sense and like really looking at the books and the numbers and the management and learning how to because really I just had a bunch of thoughts about a bunch of feelings that were stopping me from doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So, once I was able to pass through that illusion,
Yeah.
see the things, that's kind of what started happening to me. Like, I felt like I fell out of trust and into this feeling of ooh, now I've gotta do this. Now I actually have to somehow figure out how to bring in the same or more than is going out, whereas before I just did it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I noticed that too. Then I started to think like when you said, Katie, oh, then that seems like I would be safe if I figured that out. Bye, Sig. And but what I just saw is that since I started doing that and still paying attention to my thinking around it, things have been coming in differently. Things have been coming in where I can go, oh, that's one of the things that I need to for this to be sustainable and bring in enough. And I thought, oh, maybe this isn't actually it's not on me. It's just more intentional. And once I kind of because I started to feel really stressed, and I feel like the person that's teaching me, she's like, okay, Heather, you got to do this. And I was just sitting there thinking in my mind, she obviously doesn't know how I manifest anything.
Yeah, people don't understand how we just manifest numbers.
But then I started stressing about it like I did. I started to feel I started to kind of even lie awake and be like, what am I going to do? I don't even know if I can do more than I'm doing. And I actually want to do less than I'm doing. I've been trying to do less. So then when you were saying that, Katie, it just really hit me right. I was thinking, I was somehow thinking that looking at something and not just avoiding it was like now put on this burden of me of like more that I have to do to feel safe. Whereas that's just the thought that somehow was like really keeping me from well, I don't think it was keeping me from anything because it's still fine. And that's something that I think is really valuable. Like if I was to write something down as a reminder from our time together today, I would write that. Like, am I safe right now? Because I did that a lot during the pandemic with a lot of my people in my community that were getting really afraid. And I'd say, just go outside, look around, notice if you're in danger. Like, and I think that could be the same for every feeling. Like if we just stop and go, am I in danger right now? Or I'll look around and be like, well, I haven't lost my condo yet, so I might as well enjoy it today. Like that's how I started seeing it. Like so I really appreciate that the space like for that insight to come through because right, like the perception of being unsafe is much scarier than when we're really unsafe and we would have the tools within us in the moment to like fight or flight or freeze.
Yeah. Gorgeous. Thanks, Heather. I would love to open it up to, and I know a lot of people join this call in listen only mode, so don't worry if you're just listening and you're good. But I want to just give a nudge to anyone who's been listening and been like, oh my goodness, yes, or no, or I don't know, to just unmute and share a little bit maybe about what you're getting from the call, or if you have any questions, or maybe you're like, this sounds like bullshit. Like I'm certain that my circumstances are causing my experience of this feeling, and I just don't agree. Like I would love to hear from any of you. So I'll give you a moment to think about if you'd like to. Oh, Sydney. Hi.
Hey, I'm just driving, so I can't. I gotta
Yes.
just talk.
Be safe.
And
Be safe.
I'm on my way to the Legree workout, so I gotta get my workout in today. But yeah, I just turned 30 last month, and my 20s were really transformative, and there was a lot of stress and anxiety because there's just so many options and avenues to take in your 20s, and so many decisions that really alter your life. And I've been kind of in a state of like fear and staying small. And my goal turning 30 was to really like step into the fear and really play with it. And I heard this saying, it was like you have your comfort zone, you have your growth zone, and then you have your panic zone. And I've been really trying to step into that panic zone a little bit, and put myself in really uncomfortable situations. And yeah, I went for a treatment for reflexology the other day, and the therapist was like, wow, you seem really stressed. And I was like, yeah, I have been. I've been kind of playing with it. I've been actually stepping into it and having fun with it. And like, she was like, whoa, oh, okay. So I think it really resonated what you guys were saying, with just having a little bit more of a playful aspect to it. And, even if something, makes me feel really insecure and I got like the nervous poops before I'm going to do something, I'm still showing up and doing it. So that's kind of where I've been at, but I find afterward, after I do this certain event or put myself in a certain situation that would normally trigger me and go into a bit of panic, comes extreme joy. And I've noticed that like the opposite emotion to anxiety has been like excitement and joy or extreme joy. And if I like was able to kind of turn it or twist it in a certain way, like happiness is really close by. And I've always kind of noticed that about anxiety. But anyways, that's what I wanted to share today.
Yeah, that's gorgeous, Sid. Thank you for sharing. What I heard in that, which is really cool, is that like when you were differentiating between the comfort, the growth, and the panic zone, you know, those zones are fluid for all of us, you know, and what might be your panic zone, 5 years ago could be your comfort zone now. And that fluidity gives us so much space to play and to sort of stretch ourselves and to grow. And we know when we've kind of like pushed ourselves into a really growthy experience that's outside, it starts to feel like panic. But I love that you can also see that anxiety and excitement are actually two ends of the same spectrum, and it's like the feeling that we get before we go to public speak about something that we're really passionate about can feel just as awful as like it could be the same energy in the body as like extreme anxiety about doing something that maybe seems really dangerous. And it's just about how this amazing power of thought that we have takes those ideas and decides whether they're going to feel good or they're going to feel awful, and just like playing with that. It's like taking a ball of thread that's so tightly wound and just starting to kind of untangle it little by little. And like you said, like, that sense of joy or that sense of happiness that's always just there. It's, to me, like, I like to call it aliveness, because it's sort of like aliveness can be found in deep anxiety. It can be found in deep excitement. Like, it's like, it can come and be anywhere, So I absolutely love that. It was beautiful. Thanks for sharing. I imagine you're probably popping into Legree here pretty quick, so I don't, but
Thank you.
speak if you can. Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Sid. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate it. Clara, would you like to share? Oh, you're outside too. I love it. I love that everyone's taking this call from the beautiful outdoors.
I'm in between a massage and a chiropractor appointment, so I just needed to find a place to sit.
Beautiful.
I think I want to piggyback on what was just said, is that, and we're talking about the comment of our perspective and how that influences our stress over a situation, our thoughts surrounding a situation, and in my present, going through a recovery process from a significant accident. Yeah, it occurred to me yesterday. I was driving to an appointment, and there was a segment on the radio that was commenting on a CEO who was riding his bike, and who has now a spinal cord injury. And it hadn't occurred to me that that was a possible outcome, although as a physiotherapist, I know that that's a possible outcome, but it hadn't occurred to me that a possible outcome of my injury as a cyclist hit by a car was a spinal cord injury. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. It did. I mean, I'm very, very present to the fact that I am so lucky that I did not die. And the difference between me being dead or alive is how I hit the car. If I hit slightly differently, I would have broken my neck, or I would have had a cranial bleed, or blah, 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 blah. The list could go on. But when I think about the thought process in this recovery, like, I think the most important thing for me is focusing on the beauty of the processes that as it unravels, the gains that I am making. Like, something happens and maybe I limp home, but there's joy in the element of like, well, we just finally got to work on that area, and that's exciting because that means things are getting better, things are unraveling. I'm that much closer to being able to work more than one day a week. And just that unraveling process, acknowledging that my brain has more capacity, that I can actually be present for a conversation like this and remember it and not feel anxious or not drop words, and really just focusing on the gratitude and the joy in every day of the ability to be present and the beautiful gains that I am making, and just being able to step forward with something new every day. I think it's just, it keeps me in the present and grounded rather than stressed about the unknown. Mhm.
Beautiful, Clara. Thank you. One of the things that, sorry, just give me a second. One of the things that I've noticed too about what you've shared is like there's this maybe anticipation, but maybe more just like an excitement for the present moment, a gratitude for the present moment, and an excitement for what the future has been like what's been unfolding for you, you know, even though it's under this umbrella of this horrific event, there's all this like insight just popping and all this gratitude unfolding through this process that, you know, for many may appear to be something to definitely be avoided at all costs, very high stress, very high anxiety. And, you know, it would be a known possible future that now you're living into the unknownness of it. And it's able to, all its beauty and gifts are able to unfold to you in real time. You know, not to say that you may have choose to not have this collision, you know, if you could do it over again, but maybe you wouldn't choose to not have it given, you know, at the end of it all, who knows how you'll feel about it, you know, but just to see the gorgeousness that, you know, like life can give us what we want through any scenario, through any circumstance. Like Michael Neal sometimes says, we as humans, we are primed to be able to enjoy anything, you know, like, and I know it sounds crazy because people want to like pull the biggest atrocities off the shelf and be like, well, what about this? And what about that? Yeah, I get it. Like there's things that really aren't generally very enjoyable, but we have the capacity to enjoy anything. And that makes my heart really happy to know that I have that built into me and I can take it anywhere. So thank you for sharing. And I want to be super respectful of time. And if there's something you want to share after, like now, Clara, like please do. And then I'll start to get into our kind of like wrapping up. But please, I want you to have the final word on you.
Yeah, I think the one thing that is very present for me is that this accident has given me an opportunity to dive deeper into acknowledging purpose. And although I've known I've been working in the right field, there's that it's a transformational opportunity to really acknowledge my gifts and what I have an opportunity to share. And God, the universe, the creator, it's given me an opportunity to take a pause and actually dive a bit deeper into that, so that coming out on the other side, I can share in a really transformative and powerful way. And I think that that's a beauty and a gift. And yeah, I like that thought process.
Beautiful. Thank you, Clara. Valeria and Nadia. Nadia, I know you're in listen only mode because you're at work, or that's what I understand. And Valeria, I know you got little kids around, but do either one of you want to unmute and say something before we get close to wrapping up?
I just want to say I am completely grateful to listen to you this morning. I know I haven't been sharing a lot, but like I'm really listening, and it makes my my heart and my stress you know, like part of my healing process. Thank you.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you for coming, Valeria. I love that. I want to read you guys something super short from Mavis Karn's book. It's That Simple, a user manual for human beings. Mavis is my mentor's mentor, so she's, oh shit. So this is her short letter on worry. Letter 11, why worry doesn't work. This may be one of the shortest letters I'm writing to you, but it may well prove to be one of the most helpful. I'll begin it with my definition of worry. Worry is the learned habit of frightening ourselves with our own imagination. Worry seems to be one of the world's most popular useless habits, but I think we keep doing it for what we believe to be legitimate reasons. Number one, we think worry is preventative. If I worry about all possible disastrous outcomes, maybe they won't happen. The truth, worrying to prevent disaster works about as well as any other superstition, like not walking under ladders to avert bad luck or avoiding cracks to spare your mother's back. We worry because we think, number two, we worry because we think it's the same as caring. Of course, I worry about you. I love you. The truth, caring is based in wisdom and loving kindness. Worry is based in fear. Number three, we think worry is being responsible. If I don't worry, it means it doesn't matter to me what happens. The truth, worry interferes with and limits our ability to respond. Here's a little exercise for you. You might want to write your answers down instead of trying to keep them in your head. I'll post this in the group. Make 2 lists. How do you feel and act when I'm worried? How do I feel and act when I'm not worried? Now take a look at both lists side by side. What's your preference? Does it make sense that the less we worry, the more we might feel the way we'd like to feel? Does it make sense that worry might be optional? Isn't that good to know? Much love, Mavis. I just love this woman, and I wanted to share that because I think worry, anxiety, stress, they're all kind of, different arms of the same beast. But you guys, thank you so much for coming. This has been such a beautiful conversation, and I'm just so grateful to all of you who opened up about, what you have going on for you, how this looks like in your life, because it gives me something to dig into and something to really, play with you. And it's been such a pleasure having Heather co-host with me. Heather and I are cooking up a really amazing thing, which we're not going to announce right now, but just so you know that everyone in this community will be the first to know about it, as well as in her community, as we start to bring it into the world here in the fall. But we'll definitely be letting you guys know more about it here come August, probably. But in the meantime, we've been loving the new Threads app. And yes, it's like an extension of Instagram, but it's kind of like Twitter, but it's from Instagram. So what I've personally been loving about it is I'm taking the time to be really intentional about how I use it. And I'm sharing real-time wisdom as it bubbles up in me. And of course, because it's like Twitter, you only get so many characters. So you got to keep it succinct. But it's a really special place to have this kind of 3 principles type conversation, because I think insight often comes not in a lot of words. Like the most impactful insights are short, and we don't always have time to read a ton of stuff in the day. But I've been finding it's just this really beautiful place to express and to have conversations and discussions, much like we have here. So I'll post the link in the WhatsApp group for my Threads, and maybe Heather, you can post your Threads link, and then that way, if you do get on there and you want to follow us and start having conversations with us, that's an amazing way to stay connected too. But of course, we always have the WhatsApp group as well to stay connected between calls. I'm going to be going off grid here for a couple of weeks, and then I'll be back in early August with our next call, which will be an evening time call. So you guys, that was beautiful. I want to invite you to just unmute and say goodbye, maybe share any last sentiments. Perhaps you just have one word that you want to share about how you're feeling, or, where you're at. You can also share where were you when you started this call and where are you now? Chloe, you go first because you're laughing.
I'm always laughing. I just want to say thank you, Katie, for inviting me. This was once again, gotta love the universe. Somehow it provides exactly what you need, even though you had no idea you were even going to be able to be present for it. I am just so grateful that you invited me into this call, and I feel strangely substantially better after it, just to all those people who shared. And thank you for everyone for sharing this space with me today.
Yeah,
it was quite special.
Thank you, Chloe. I love you. Thank
you.
Love you.
Thank you.
would like to go next?
I do.
Okay.
So, first of all, it's so nice. This is the first time I am with you in a session, like in the early in the morning, and it's super nice. I love it. And yeah, well, as Heather said, like he actually like I knew that I knew it before, but like somehow now I am gonna be conscious to love my stress because it's there for a reason, and it's like telling me like I need to do something else. So it's just a sign. It's like a really wise response of our whole body, like our mind, our physical emotions, everything. So it was so nice. Thank you for sharing. And like it's been such a pleasure to remind that. Thank you.
Thanks, Valeria. I love that. I just got the image of like driving down the highway and it's like turn left to your destination, and then we get mad at the sign. We're like, why are you such a jerk? And the sign's like, I'm just a sign, like I'm neutral. Right? Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Clara.
I just want to say thank you. You know, I'm just reflecting on last week where it was just the two of us for an hour, and then Heather popped in, and I was like, "This is what happened after I signed off. I love it."
Exactly.
So, thank you, both of you.
You're welcome. Heather, let's give you the final word.
That's awesome. I just had this image of like dancing, being like, yeah, I'm stressed, I'm so stressed. It's so awesome. It's so great. You know, just like this catalyzing of like all of the weight that we put on some kind of a feeling to mean something. Like it's just, you know, I love that we could hold this space, and you know, like Katie said at the beginning, like we get as much out of it as you, because being able to hear everybody's stories not only helps us like feel supported and human, like we're all human, we're all going through stuff, but it's just been such an honor seeing how everyone here and everyone that's been sharing is so willing to be courageous and empowered rather than like a victim to their circumstances and their feelings. That's just so inspirational.
Thank you, Heather. And you know, it's like it's normal to feel like a victim, but it's natural to rise through it, you know, and I love when people rise to the natural, you know, they go, maybe normal's not for me, maybe natural's for me.
I kind of like that as like a title, rise to the natural.
Yeah. Uh-oh, Heather and I are now scheming, so you better leave or you'll never get to go. No,
I gotta go make an avocado toast for my son before I do my group.
it's true. She does. All right, everyone. Thank you for coming. You're so beautiful and so precious to me. I appreciate you all so much. And these calls just enrich my life when everyone comes and shows up and plays full out. So thank you, thank you. And we'll catch you in the next one in August. Have a great rest of July.
Gracias.
Bye. Bye. Oh, adios, Lucas.